And I'll push this out of the way then. We don't need to see an MGP, do we?
Well, welcome to another Dave's Classic Garage Tours video, and this time I'm at Northern Modern and Classic in Melbourne's North. As you'll see, it's an eclectic bunch of cars being worked on, so let's get straight inside and have a look around. Okay, Ruben, thanks for allowing us to come along today and have a look around your setup here. We'll get into the business as a whole a bit later. So this is going to be probably one of my latest cars to feature on the channel. Tell us about it.
This one, 99996, came in to address a few recurring issues, and while it was here we decided to tackle the IMS bearing, common point of failure on these cars.
Right.
And some other engine out maintenance.
Right, the infamous IMS bearing.
Yes.
So have you done it yet?
Yes, it's been done.
And did it look like it was on its way out?
As is often the case, not really.
Yeah.
But you never know. So I have personally seen them fail.
Yeah.
And that's really not something that you want to deal with. It's tens of
But it's
thousands.
not as common as.
It's not, but it is one of those things. Like I said, it's sort of when it happens, it seems to happen with very little warning, if any. So it can happen low mileage, high mileage. It doesn't really seem to matter.
Right. Okay. And would it come around through certain kind of usage? Do you think?
There's various theories on it. Some theories would agree with that, but honestly, I haven't an answer. It's just one of those things. It just happens very randomly when it does.
Yeah. And is it as a pain of a job to deal with?
Not really. If you have the correct tooling, not particularly. It's a bit daunting if you haven't done it before, but I've done a few now, so it's it's one of those things that gets easy.
You've done. So how many would you say you've done?
Probably upwards of 20 or 30.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
And would they have been all preventative
Yes,
jobs?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those things. If it goes, it's
and
too
if you're in that area of the car,
exactly. If you're doing a clutch or transmission work on a Tiptronic model, whatever it is, it most often makes sense to do it if it's unknown.
Right. Okay. So this is a tidy little number. A white one, Carrera.
Yes.
99, you say?
Yes.
Right on the cusp. I said Tiptronic, though.
Tiptronic.
Okay.
It has its place.
Yes.
It has its place.
Yeah. And more so in Australia than. It's the common thing with Australians preferring the automatics and what have you. Would you?
996s, there's certainly a lot of Tiptronics around, but it's sort of 50-50, I'd say. I don't know the numbers, but there's a lot of both.
Yeah. And the performance-wise of that unit, in the way the gear change and what have you, is it a?
They've come a long way. We'll say that much compared to a PDK or anything, a modern, ZF 8-speed or 10-speed or something like that. It's, it may as well be a completely different thing. But as a daily, they're fine. Yeah.
If you want to go to work in style,
it's just fine.
It's absolutely fine. Yeah. And what's your view on the eggs at the front? Are people coming round to them now?
Look, when I first started doing Porsche work, I think like most people, I didn't really love it, but I've come around to it. I think a lot of people have, and they're otherwise such a good car that what difference does it make really?
Sure. And that is the. Have we got original ones here? The actual lenses, or are they these?
No, not quite. It's had the orange taken out of it. Likewise on the rear. Yeah.
Right. Pretty original all around, is it?
Yeah, it's quite a good car, this one.
Yeah. No, certainly not something to sniff at anymore, is it?
No.
Okay, lovely. This is a bit special. Something local. What have we got here?
Well, we've got what was an LH that's now an LX SLR Replica.
Oh, right. Okay.
Belongs to a mate of mine. He's had it since he was more or less 15, something like that. And he's sort of slowly built it into what it is now. So it's here. He and I pulled the engine out of this car about 10 years ago. And it's not been back on the road since. So we're now sort of just getting it going again, with the idea being to, in a few years' time, probably pull it back off the road again and have it painted, because there's some rust coming through in the doors and so on. But at least for the time being, we're looking to sort out the mechanicals, make it drive nice, and then, you know, have it in a position where you can just pull it all apart and put it back together. So.
And an LX, that would have been just a run-of-the-mill car?
Yeah, this was, I think, a bench seat column shift 6-cylinder car or something to that effect, so very bog standard sort of stuff. It's now got a 333 stroker in it that we built. It's imported HQ heads and bigger valves and all that sort of stuff. 4-speed box, put a Borg Warner diff in it and a tail shaft to suit. We've done up all the front suspension. Yeah, all fairly basic sort of stuff that you do to these things.
And how do, obviously the diehards will sniff at this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now, is there a changing sort of ethos within Australia of acceptability for?
I think it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Look, I can see why people have an issue with it, for sure, but you know, in an instance like this, it's not trying to be an 100% accurate concourse reproduction example. It's just something that he can drive, jump in, and it has all the fun ingredients. Yeah. So I think it depends on how you're treating it in that respect, but for this, it just makes sense.
And the upgraded parts now on it, are they something that would take it over and beyond the original in the way of the handling or performance?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Much so. Like the front ends had basically everything you can do to a standard Tirana front end done to it. It's got UC upper control arms and a UC rack and Harrop steering arms and lowered springs, Coney shocks, good bushings, all that sort of stuff. So we're sort of doing it in a way where it should be pretty nice to drive and be fairly versatile. If he wants to do a track day in it occasionally, he could, or you know, anything really, yeah. Right. But look, realistically, we haven't altered the suspension geometry or anything like that. If you actually did want to engineer it, it would really need very little to nothing, so. Yeah. The short motor was actually built by a Holden V8 specialist about 10 years ago when we first pulled it out, and I've since put the rest of it back together, yeah, to clarify that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it heads and all the ancillary stuff. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. CS Automatic. Another fine Aussie purchase.
Yeah.
Tell me about this one.
This one's a car I've recently started looking after. Came in just before Christmas. Had some running issues. Got it running better, but fundamentally it needed things like the carburettors rebuilt and the distributor rebuilt and a few bits like that. So it's back now for that stuff. It's also recently in this hot weather been running a bit warm. So worked out that the original mechanical fan clutch had failed. Unfortunately, that's no longer available, but we've worked out we're able to convert it to a sort of E28, E34 style viscous fan and water pump. So yeah. that should be a good improvement and bit easier to look after down the line. So yeah, it's quite a sweet little car. This one's very original. Underneath, it's had paint and all that sort of stuff before, but it's a pretty honest car, this one. So yeah.
And parts-wise, yeah, would that be more difficult for an automatic, or?
Oh look, certainly if you had to do any work on the auto, it could be difficult to get parts for it. But thus far, for what I've been doing, it's been really easy. Yeah.
And tell us about the complexities of keeping one of these sort of engines in fine fettle. What's your general go-to?
The first thing on a car like this, as is often the case, you really want to have a good look at the ignition system. On this particular car, I found that the distributor, the advance weights were hanging on a bit, so the idle was just constantly erratic. Sometimes it'd be 800 RPM, other times it'd be 1800 RPM. So things like that, hence why I've pulled the dizzy out and sent it away for a recondition and conversion to electronic. So that sort of stuff's always good to do on these old things. Yeah. Likewise with the carbies, it's just, they were a bit beyond the pale for reliability.
And what would they be?
A weird sort of Zenithy Solex. I forget the exact terminology of them, but they're not my carby guy's favourite thing to rebuild, but he does do them, yeah. Yes, they're a bit complex.
Sure. Are these presumably, obviously it's not the Batmobile, it's not CSL or whatever, but there's still, there's a
Yeah.
Big interest in these cars in Australia in particular.
Yeah, this day and age, like everything old, they've gone up in value significantly. Yeah, obviously it's not the same as a 3-litre car, but yeah, nonetheless, it's a nice thing to cruise around in, being auto, and it's got enough power and it's quite comfortable. So,
yeah.
you know,
I often hear complaints now of this, that, or the other. Cars, they don't. It's because it's not that particular car. It's not the top end. It's not the. It's like, who's driving these cars to those sort of in that manner nowadays? Anyway, surely they're all just cruisers now.
Yeah.
Who wants to drop the clutch on a 3-litre CSL anyway?
Not me. No, look, this car's exactly that. The guy uses it often, always has. He's had it for 10 or so years, and it's just been more or less a daily something to get away in. It's, yeah, for what he does with it, it's perfect. Yeah.
And again, perfect as a daily.
Oh, yeah. It even has aircon. Of course, naturally it doesn't work, but it does have aircon.
Should he wish to one day?
Yes, it could work. Yeah.
Cool. That's another beauty. So what have we got here? A bit of a track day special, eh?
We have. What we have here is an E36 M3. It was a 3.2 litre car. Was built many years ago as an improved production car. It's changed hands several times. The guy that owns it now, he'd had serious engine troubles with the S50.
Right.
And being that it's well and truly a race car by that point, we decided to go down the LS route, which has been quite a good thing. So,
yeah. Getting into your classifications and whatever when you're going on track, if you're actually racing and whatever, that takes them into a different realm, presumably than the stock or.
Yeah. So this is completely ineligible for improved production now. The engine's been out of it for about 6 months. We've been rebuilding it, had an issue splitting the block, which was less than ideal, but it does generally run in a class called Thunder Sports, and it's reasonably competitive in that. Yeah.
Thunder Sports.
Yes.
Right.
And we have run it in sports sedans, but realistically, it's never going to compete with tube chassis cars with the sort of horsepower that they have. So yeah.
Sure. Good bit of fun for the weekend. Eh?
Yes.
These wing mirrors are worth a few bob, aren't
Yes.
they? Don't want to be smacking them.
No, it still has the original M3 threshold covers as well. But yeah, there's not much road car left in it, that's for sure. But, yeah. Yes, but look, I've only got good things to say about the LS platform, having done it to this.
Sorry, which one is it? LS?
It's just an LS1 in this 5.7. Yeah. When we first built the car in that iteration, we ran it for pretty much 2 seasons with a wrecker bottom end and some good heads and a decent cam, and it was very reliable. So.
Was he take down, Sandown or Phillip?
Yeah, we get around with it a bit. Been up to Eastern Creek a few times. He did Tail and Bend last year, so it gets around. Yeah, if I can get the engine done in time, we're hoping to sort of run for the National Series this year, but we'll see. It's approaching rapidly. Yes.
Okay, so this wasn't in the other day when I popped by. What's going on here?
We have here a 3-litre Carrera. Got a reasonably hot engine in it. This one was built up in Sydney about 15 years ago. It's in recent history had some issues idling and hunting that I'd sort of put down to the K-Jetronic. We were originally planning to just overhaul all the K-Jetronic stuff, but as of a phone call a couple of days ago, it looks like we're going to put some PMO carburetors on it. So it should get a bit more power out of it, a bit more simplicity. And it certainly looks better. PMO. They're sort of a Weber copy with some updates and pretty much the go-to for a 911 carburetor, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. So what year is the actual car?
76, this one, yeah.
Right, okay, so that cusp of the turnover from...
Yes, so it's sort of, just before the SC, yeah. But, they're quite a desirable car, these, and in terms of keeping it original, we'll do the carburetor conversion in a way where it can easily be put back to K-Jetronic. And K-Jet, personally, I quite like and often do repair K-Jet systems, but in this instance, it does really just make sense to go carbied for what the engine is. So a short stroke 3 litre.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and this one's about 10.5 to 1 compression, decent sized cams in it, GT3 oil pump, all that sort of good stuff. So it's not crazy, but it's a noticeable increase over a standard one.
And what sort of usage has this car had over the years, do you think?
I don't know a great deal about its history. It is Australian delivered, and it's quite an honest car underneath, as you can see. It sort of wears its heart on its sleeve. It's not too beaten up, but not terrible. Yeah.
All pretty original, yeah?
Yeah, all pretty original, yeah. It's had some suspension work. I think it's got bigger torsion bars in it, and it's got some Bilsteins in it and all that sort of standard stuff that you do to these. Yeah, and while the engine's out, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to tidy things up a bit, do a bit of powder coating, plating, blasting, all that sort of stuff. So we'll see where we end up.
Well, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell for the update on the engine. As you can see here, Ruben has done a fantastic job putting it back together again, which you'll see in the next episode from Northern, Modern and Classic. And of course, there's plenty more to come, including a spectacular 1960s Datsun Roadster that's been updated with a Nissan SR20 engine from an S13 Silvia.